Good morning, it is Thursday, December 15th, day 8 of the event window here. Yesterday was a big day. We had Stephanie Gilmore taking down Tyler Wright and Carissa Moore in the Women's Pipe Invitational. We also saw the first round of the main event hit the water. Welcome once again to the Billabong Pipe Masters in loving memory of Andy Irons. We've got a big show on Dawn Patrol this morning. First up, we'll be getting the call and checking out some of those great performances in the first round. And then Joey Tappel and Pete Mell are going to break down the mechanics of pipeline. And later on, with the second round established, we're going to be having a look at some of the heavy matchups. That re-qualification story continues here at the last event on the schedule. I'm Ronnie Blakey, joined by Ross Williams, who finaled here back in the day. Ross, how are you?
Morning, Ronnie. How you doing?
I'm really well. What did you make of the Women's Pipe Invitational yesterday?
I thought it was pretty impressive. Stephanie Gilmore, we've been just tripping out on how hard she's been ripping the last few weeks on the North Shore, and she came right in and did what we thought she would do. She was ripping. Hasn't
had a victory in a while, and it's going to be interesting to see if she can carry that confidence and momentum into the new year. But also, straight at the first round got underway at the main event, and it was such a different day of competition here at Pipe.
Yeah, well, you got to see the other side of what you get here on the North Shore when you get that north sweep coming down the beach, and you got those different conditions and the current kind of point break-esque, and you get to see some really good surfing, some big open turns. It was fun to watch.
I don't think anyone looked as solid as Gabriel Medina. He didn't have the highest heat score total, but just his ability to seize on opportunities, limited opportunities in a tricky lineup was really impressive.
I think so. I mean, I definitely saw better turns throughout the day than what we saw from Gabriel, but he's always so savvy competitively. He had a couple of turns where it looked like maybe he was going to catch an edge, and then he did the Gabriel Medina thing where he just refused to fall and landed him. So I think Ronnie, he's always so sharp competitively, and he actually admitted saying, you know what, I kind of want to go home. And he still put together two crazy scores.
He seemed so eggy through Europe. He was obviously stinging with the way some of those results were falling. He had some very close heats. But Strider just seems like he's kind of let that go now, and he's focused on a big finish here, and he's setting his sights on another good campaign in 2017.
Well, yeah, you got a choice. You can either hang on to it and just, kind of revel in it and really just stir and make it worse, or you can just separate it, go back to your, the good times and your life and how good it really is. I mean, these guys are getting paid to surf around the world. You cannot have a better life. So I like that he stepped away from it all now that he's on the good foot. He's just surfing, having fun, getting ready to go back home and enjoy that. So that's what he needed to do, and that's what he did.
The impressive thing about Medina Ross, he went into the excellent range, but it still felt like he didn't really get out of first gear.
Yeah, I think so. That was just him kind of going through the motions, but lucky for Gabriel Medina, his version of going through the motions is a couple 8.5s or whatever. But you're right, Strider. I just wanted to add to that, all the years I was on tour, whenever you had a bad heat or a bad score even, you're constantly psychologically dealing with those demons. So if you thought you kind of ripped a wave and a 6.5 gets thrown out, you're like, oh. It wears on you as a pro surfer, so you have to have that ability, Ronnie, to just shake things off.
Definitely. It was a good run of heats, actually. Very exciting, always, when you get to that midpoint in a round, because you're going to see those top seeds enter the water. Straight after Gabriel, we had John hit the lineup. So comfortable. Slightly shaky in the opening stages of this heat, but just brought it home in a big way.
Yeah, you know what? I think he actually said he heard this score, or the cheers of the crowd, and heard the score drop for Jad. He's like, oh no, is this really going to go down right now? But you know what? He just slipped right back into the comfort mode. He's at home. Just found himself a really couple of nice little runners, and put down a couple of scores. Actually got a nice little tube. Jaddy tried to push it in on him.
Ross, at different stages, you and I have been talking about just the flow or the connection to the ocean that this guy's feeling at the moment. It just seems like when he's on a wave, he's just completely at one with it. He's reacting to what's happening. He's not forcing his turns. He's just flowing beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost unfair for John to have the contest on a day like today, because there's so many little nuances and weird tricky little holes in the reef that you have to be able to telegraph it. And for John, he surfs out here every day anyways. Even before John goes to, say, Europe or Brazil, he's going to practice right there where you're looking at. So, it was a big advantage for John.
It's interesting, like what you guys are talking about with the flow. Like, we've watched John, and he's been touted as the best free surfer in the world, like the best surfer. And then competitively, when he was trying to push it and make it happen, it wasn't happening for him. And then he clicked into letting it flow through heats. And that's just a deadly recipe for the rest of the world, because watching his just free surfs is so funny. You see him catch wave after wave after wave, and then for him to put it together in heats like that, good night.
Fun to watch, and huge heat score totals coming as a result. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get the call and find out if this second round is going to get underway.
Good morning and welcome back to WSL Dawn Patrol. I'm with Renato Hickel from the Commissioner's Office. Renato, what happened? This morning it was so glassy and fun, and now it's just hurricane winds.
Absolutely. It was actually, like you said, really fun. Port's got a really nice barrel on the free surf, but this wind that wasn't a forecast just hit the coast and wrecked the conditions. Really strong corners, so we're calling the competition off for the day, but we will meet again tomorrow, 7:30 a.m. local time.
Well, another lay day in the books. While we have this chance, let's have Joe and Pete take us through the mechanics of pipeline.
Welcome to a spot check of one of our favorite waves in the world, the Bonsai Pipeline. Joe Turpel alongside former big wave champ Peter Mel to break down how this wave really works. Pete, you love giving the forecasts, and obviously there you can go even a bit further with the maps we're about to show.
Well, you talk about bathymetry. Bathymetry here at Pipeline is dynamic. It's one of the best places on Earth to really take a deep dive look into what this place is and how it ticks.
Bathymetry, one of Pete Mel's favorite words, which means the topography of the ocean floor. Before we even get there, we're going to talk about how a channel was really eroded here at Pipeline over thousands of years. As we take a look at Pupukea Heights, you have the Pakulena Gulch, which is right here. A lot of freshwater flow over thousands of years worked his way to carve out a channel there right at Pipeline. These days, this gulch actually is exiting more towards rock piles, but over the years it created that beautiful left-hand channel, which we can see from there, Pete.
Well, and you see especially here that light water that kind of has a sand bottom, but that's where that channel, and it leads actually all the way out into the Pacific, and of course that's what steers the swells in here, but ultimately what makes that channel, which is safety for you have this shallow portion of the reef right here.
And that's exactly where the swells are always kind of focusing towards. They come out of deep water and they're always magneted towards a shallower section of the reef, creating that crazy barrel factor, which keeps us coming back every year. Now checking this one out from down the beach, we're looking towards log cabins. Right here, the scaffolding for the Pipe Masters. One thing competitors, surfers that come here to Pipe are always asking at the beginning of the day, how is the sand looking? Pete, why are they asking that?
Well, it's crucial here. I mean, a lot of times you don't want a lot of sand here, and right now this beach is big and gigantic, especially right here where it's a big high spot. You know, what that does is creates backwash. And really, at pipeline, you don't want anything to affect the wave itself. It's already dangerous as it is. And when you've got reverberations heading out towards sea, it's hard to drop in. It makes the barrel breathe. It makes it not as perfect as you would have liked. So right now, we've got a ton of sand, and that will affect the lineup. And generally, the sand will come by different swell directions. You know, you've got a west swell, which is not what we've had a whole lot this year. We've had only one real kind of pipe swell, and it even had a bit of north in it. And what that would do would push that sound away from the reef and clean it up. I mean, you get into February and March around here, and generally, your beach is going to be all the way up to the shore. I mean, all the way up to these shrubs. And that's kind of what you want. But right now, we're dealing with the sand. But you know what? Got the best in the world, right? So they're going to deal with it.
Exactly. Just an extra factor to make this wave even more challenging. So dealing with a big beach this year, once again for the Pipe Masters, just going back in history, you see a lot of situations on the reef. Some people saying backdoor section of the reef might be sharper than the reef over at Pipe, but we've seen just as heavy moments in history with wipeouts. What's your take on that, Pete?
I think it's all dangerous. I mean, it's shallow. That's the reason. It's hard. It's like concrete. Yes, and look at all these ridges and holes. You know, you've even got out here. You look at this zone there. That's backdoor. You've got pipeline, which feeds into the sand right here. This is actually probably a shot that doesn't fully recognize what it looks like right now, because this is actually a reef that's been cleaned off. But now there's some sand over in here, and that will, again, affect the lineup. But you know what? It's the main reason why this is such a radical wave. Size of the wave, and the reason is it's shallow.
Also, caves in between these little sections here where you can fit your whole body in between them. We've had some serious injuries. One, B. Durbridge, a left-at Pipe that took him out for a whole year. One of the best comebacks we've ever seen.
Absolutely, and one of the reasons why that had happened is that this wave breaks over that shallow reef, but there's high spots too. I mean, you could even look at this little zone there. That's a little knuckle. It's a little shallow spot. I mean, you get thrown over on top of that and you hit your bum like he did, it's going to hurt.
Well, Pete, we have different sections of where these guys take off, from first to second to even third reef days at times. How much room do you have under your feet when you're waiting for a wave at backdoor and pipeline on the first reef?
Well, it's anywhere from 6 to 8 feet, you know, but when a wave actually pulls water off the reef, it actually can go down into 3 or 4 feet. So it is very shallow. This is a great shot kind of our lineup here. It's small, of course, today, but you can kind of get a look at where the certain reefs are. Here is your first reef. This is where you'll see the takeoff zone for both backdoor and pipeline. Left's here, pipeline, backdoor here. But there is second reef, and sometimes when it gets much bigger, the second reef actually moves over towards rock piles to the left over here, and that's when you see those waves kind of cap way out there, and you get guys that will roll in and then come into the first reef and pull into the barrel. And then, of course, we talk about the third reef, which is way out here. That's the third reef. Not a lot of surfers have made it out there, but it is somewhere that some guys, if they want to start riding some 10-foot boards, they can go out there and do that too.
It's really interesting, Pete. I love when you draw on the screen here. I'm just going to give you a couple of names off the top of my head, and I want you to put where they're sitting in this lineup.
Okay.
Because it's one spot, but sometimes guys don't even see each other in a single session if they're surfing pipe or backdoor. Former world champ Sonny Garcia, where is he going to be sitting?
He likes the main peak right here at the first reef. That's his zone. He's going to look this direction over here towards the rights. That's what he loves. He actually is very accomplished going both directions, but backdoor probably being his favorite.
First Hawaiian world champ Derek Ho, where is he going to sit on a normal day at the office?
Well, West Swell, he's going to be sitting a little bit deeper, but he actually likes to move outside the pack. And that's one of the things he does. He rides a slightly longer board. He's got pretty much free right of way to go any which wave he wants, and that's just being a prince and a world champion. You're going to get that. Same with Sonny. But he's going to sit a little bit further out, and he likes that because he gets choice of wave. He makes a move. Everyone clears the water.
Very interesting how you have such a vast lineup. Some guys will sit on completely different parts of the reef. They're looking for different types of waves. Would you say that goes into past history with our Pipeline Masters? Last Goofy Foot champ Robin shot in 2000. Are you automatically thinking maybe the swell wasn't in favor of pipe for about a decade?
Yeah, I would say that it's a lot of that. You want that really west swell. You want something that is going to be all lefts. I mean, if you want a goofy footer to really shine. But I think a little bit of going on with that too is you got guys like Kelly Slater, John Florence that are so good on their backhand anti-irons. And those guys are so good on their backhand. Their barrel riding skills are just as accomplished on their backhand at pipeline as they would the goofy footers.
Really interesting. Maybe one goofy foot that's starting to just break all barriers. Gabriel Medina back-to-back finals, solid going pipe or backdoor. And great to see a little bit more insight on what happens here at Pipeline and backdoor here for the Billabong Pipe Masters. Thanks for watching.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll be having a look at some of the big round 2 matchups. Welcome back to the show, Ronnie with Ross and Strider. It is day 8 of the event window and we'll have no competition today, but the second round has been established. Some heavy matchups with a couple of former Pipe Masters meeting in Heat 2 of round 2. And we're going to talk a little bit about that heat because it's a good challenge for both surfers. Adriano de Souza up against Bruce Irons. Who's going to win, Ross?
I think Bruce right now, competitively, he's not going to be obviously as sharp as Adriano de Souza. So even though Bruce is an absolute legend at Pipeline, he has the edge on what's possible. He's the first guy to show us to get how you get barreled at pipe with no hands. So his legacy is going to be intact, but Adriano's, I think he'll probably get him.
Strider, you got some thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm going with Ross on the not tack sharp as far as competitive surfing goes, but I feel like when this thing gets back underway, we're going to see a lot of surfing going on. We're going to see, overlapping heats, and I think that Bruce is going to get the better of him sneaking around in there on those little rights because I know he's going to be hunting, and then he's obviously got the game on the backhand too. Until
last year when Adriano, we're seeing some highlights of Bruce from back in the day, but until last year we'd come to this event and Adriano, you just never even gave him a chance at winning through those early round heats, especially because he was usually coming up against some of those specialists. These days though, that Pipe Masters title under his belt, his performance in the earlier rounds last year, you'd give him a pretty good shot at it against Bruce.
Absolutely, and of course Adriano de Souza won the Pipeline Masters in some pretty crummy ways. It looked more like Sandy Beach than Pipeline, but Adriano can get barreled at 10-foot pipe. We've seen some highlights over the last couple of years, not only here but during the Volcom event too, where he can get barreled now proper.
And he tapped into Jamie O. He did his homework. He put the hard work in, and he did make it through some crazy heats in big pipe during that event that he won. So the prior heats it was 10 foot. It was just slabbing on the reef, and he was head down going.
For me, I think if we get good conditions for pipe, Bruce is the favourite. I think Adriano is going to be competitive no matter what the waves are like.
Yeah. So for Bruce, here's the thing though, and what I mean by being tack sharp is Adriano is going to keep tabs on what Bruce has got. So if you know how a pipe is, and by the way, the forecast looks okay. It could turn around to the south, the wind on Sunday, and it could be by 8 feet. So we're looking at proper rights and lefts, which is great for Bruce. But Adriano is going to keep tabs on Bruce. I don't know if Bruce is going to keep tabs on Adriano with where the scores are, and okay, do I need a quick 4.5? Or do I need a backup score? And that's a huge advantage for Adriano.
Definitely, yeah. Another former Pipe Master in the mix in the second round is Joel Parkinson. He's going to be taking on the 16-year-old winner of the trials, Finn McGill. This is such a great heat for Finn. Obviously, Joel would be one of his heroes. Parker's going to have to watch this kid. He was really sharp through the trials.
Yeah, he was having fun out there too, and really kind of growing into becoming a young man and really putting himself in the position where he needed to be, falling into it, finding fun little barrels on the back door and on the lefts too. So we got to see him doing it both ways, which is an interesting note. You don't know whether or not these kids can do that, to go back door, to go pipeline, and we know Joel's going to go both ways and kind of he's got what it takes. But this kid, look, on the backhand, just pulling it up.
Joel's been competing at this level, Ross, since the year Finn McGill was born.
Yeah.
Do you see him dropping this heat to the grommet?
It's very possible. I honestly think Joel is a slight favorite. Like if you had to choose someone, you'd pick Joel, obviously. But Finn McGill is not to be overlooked because I know he's 16 years old and he's going to be bubbling with adrenaline and all that and being a little more nervous than Joel. But Finn has been surfing out here for the last 4 or 5 years, and he's got that comfort level. This is his backyard, and Finn is super talented. He does have some traces of Bruce irons or whatever. He can knife it under the hood. So if it's 8 feet, A-frames, rights and lefts, Finn can definitely upset Joel Parkinson.
Going to be fun watching those Pipe Masters try and fight their way out of the second round. After the break, we're going to be having a look at some of the really interesting matchups in round 2. Surfers struggling to re-qualify. Welcome back to the show. No competition today. Those Kona winds howling at the moment and making a mess of conditions, so we'll wait for some better waves to see the world's best fight for re-qualification down the bottom end of the ratings. There were some surfers having a tough go of it yesterday, but now we're getting into the serious stuff, Ross Williams, because there is no second chances. Now you're in the second round. If you lose out here, you might be off tour.
Yeah, and that's the focus kind of in this segment here is there's actually a handful of guys that we need to watch in round 2 that you just never know. This could be their last CT heat ever. Kai Otten, Davey Cathels, who else do we got? Nat Young. I mean, Nat Young, that's crazy. This is a guy that you would think that, is year in, year out is going to make top 10. So these are some big names that could go down, Strider.
Yeah, guys like Keanu as well, who are just scrapping, fighting with a win, though, on the year. Over in France, he kind of has a little bit of confidence coming into it, but, this is a lot of pressure coming onto your shoulders for, the last event of the year.
He's dropping a number of 25ths too, so Keanu can really make up some ground by just progressing through a couple of heats. So he's definitely got a good shot at re-qualification if he can show some good form.
Yeah, definitely. With 10,000 points for first place is huge, but I think they're all in the same boat. They're all throwing away 25th, so the math is the same. And the best heat you could ever ask for is Nat Young and Jadson Andre in a heat together. Of course, Ezekiel Lau is going to be on the beach cheering Jaddy on. He wants him to double qualify so that he can get that 11th spot. So that is a great confrontation, that heat.
It's kind of great to have this situation, the world title decided. It gives us the opportunity to really focus in on some of these other big stories, and Kai Otten is a huge one. For a long time he's been one of our favourite characters on the championship tour and really given us some special moments, especially at locations that have a bit of punch like this.
Yeah, he's so passionate about it. I mean, look at the guy coming in from behind it. That was just a massive barrel out here. Look at how beautiful the bonsai is when it's turning on. Hopefully we get these kind of conditions again, and Otts can show up and do just that right there. He's up against Stu Kennedy, which is an interesting note because Stu is hurt right now, and we're not even sure if he's going to be able to come back to competition.
Well, that might be an interesting scenario for Kai, but Ross, he was one of those late bloomers. He was a late qualifier. He was banging away on the QS for some time, and he joined the elite ranks and just instantly turned up and started giving us really big performances. He got a CT victory in Portugal a few years back. It was awesome to see.
Well, it's that old cliche of, the guy's got passion, he's got heart, and he's got a lot of fight in him. So if for some reason years down the line Kai does hang it up, he'd be an awesome coach.
He might just have to win this contest to keep his place on the championship tour. Gentlemen, it's been fun chatting with you this morning.
Right on, dogs.
What are we doing on the lay day? Get a little wave
We're going to go surf. There's secret spots just firing everywhere.
All right. Well, have a good day, everyone, and make sure you tune in bright and early tomorrow for another edition of Dawn Patrol.